Oh,
So,
no problem. Thank you for joining us. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us this evening. I am Colonel Clydea Pritchard Brown. I'm the founder of the Female Mentor Morale Program, but I also like to say I'm a big sister and a little sister to a whole bunch of great people out there who have joined the program and are excited and motivated to focus on conversations with men and women that have a desire to improve life for women in the military or who work for the military or just overall in our communities. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you again for joining us. For those who are new to us, thank you for joining us and thank you for hearing the message and wanting to be a part of the conversation. And then for those who are returning, thank you for coming back. We always love seeing your names in this session and we always want to hear from you. Before we get started, as the ones that have joined us before always know, we start out with a prayer. And so we ask that you join in prayer or choose to pray to your God or however you would like to. We're going to take a moment and have a moment of prayer. And that's going to be given by Captain Claudia Luis. Claudia?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Please bow your heads and pray with me as I will pray to my Lord Jesus Christ, but do feel free to pray to the Lord of your understanding. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us up today to speak of subjects to build women, to build us, to build our force. Lord, we thank you for Laticia, Miss Laticia who's going to speak to us today. Lord, let your Holy Spirit guide this conversation. Let everyone leave this conversation built and stronger and ready to take on their challenges in their lives. Lord, we pray that you also bring your Holy Spirit on Laticia as she share with us her testimony, Lord. Let it be a testimony that builds us, and let it be a testimony that gives us the courage to take on bigger and better things in life. Lord, we praise you, we thank you in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. And with that, I am so excited to, before we get started on the session tonight, I want to just have a little bit of administrative news. So I'm so honored. Hopefully I have quite a few of them on tonight, but we have a number of women on here and men, hopefully they're going to be in here tonight as well, who have answered the call to leadership and challenge by having some new chapters of the FMFP stood up recently. As some of you already know, we've had Team Redstone, which happened to be my last duty station, and Huntsville, Alabama. So Team Redstone was made of is made of probably about 10, 11 organizations, if not more. And so we're so happy and excited to have some of them on the line tonight. And not only that, we have recently had the relaunch of the U.S. Army Central Command chapter launched by Lieutenant General Frank, who is the commander of U.S. Army RCENT. He not only helped launch it, he was there to facilitate and host the ceremony. And so with that, to know that we have that level of leadership throughout the Army, to include other commanding generals and other leaders that are out there, and civilians who are taking part. Ms. Marion Wicker is our leading supporter for the Team Redstone Arsenal chapter. I also want to acknowledge that we have 2 additional chapters that are getting ready to stand up that are currently in the works. One of them is the 21st Theater Sustainment Command, where there's a Lieutenant Madeline Easter, who's working magic, and I'm there with her, and so is our team working with her. And then we also have, and I'm already going to tell you because I'm excited about it because I'm in the unit, First TSC, First Theater Sustainment Command, is going to be coming to a theater near you as well. So we'll do that launch as well. We already have some awesome women and men who are ready to bring this program to them to facilitate a great conversation as well as mentorship for our men and women in and out of uniform. And with that, let's get to the evening at hand. I'm so excited and honored to introduce you to this phenomenal woman. She has been through the world of hard knocks, great knocks, and made everything possible with her faith, her motivation, her confidence, and not only that, her strength and courage to be able to face things and be able to say, I'm going to make this part of my journey to share with others. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you all remember seeing the announcement, we have Miss Laticia Action Jackson. And if you all remember, Action Jackson was an awesome movie way back in the day for people my age. But Action Jackson meant she's doing things and taking action, not passive, but active action on doing things. She's a survivor of domestic violence. So we're going to hear some of her story this evening. We're also going to hear about how she became a fitness Olympian and the strength and courage it took to be able to come out of where she was in darkness and then make a, a beautiful future for herself, her husband, and now her beautiful daughter. So now I'm an aunt. I just let you know I've already adopted her in my family. But not only that, she's an author of 13 books. And when I say author of 13 books, she wrote them. So many people have ghostwriters that they write, have somebody write their story. She sat down and took pen to paper and put her thoughts, her journey, her experiences, and then what she offers others in their lives to help them grow and come out of whatever darkness they may be in, or not only that, just rise even higher than they already expect to be. And then finally, she's a personal development expert. She is someone that has already created a program that empowers others. And not only do I'm not just a fan of hers virtually and knowing her, but we are biggest supporters of each other now because I've adopted her into my family. And I want you to know that because when you hear her conversation, her speech, and you're going to already feel that warmth that's going to come from her. And you're going to probably want to add her to your family as well. I'm just saying. Now, does that take away from somebody's will and take away part of your inheritance? Could be. But being a part of her family, I'm just honored. And not only that, I'm going to be doing some of her programs. So just, shameless plug for me to be a part of her fan club. But with that, while we are talking and going through the evening, and like Miss Action Jackson, Laticia is going through and talking, please feel free to add comments to the chat room, to take some time if you want to think about questions you want to ask her as you hear her journey and as you hear some of her recommendations and thoughts and advice and her motivational portion of speaking to so many. Please take some time to put some thoughts in the chat room. We'll ask those questions for you when it comes to the question and answer period, or we're going to let you ask them yourselves. We're going to call on people just to say, what would you like to add to the conversation? Because we often have people that join in and they're hesitant to give their thoughts, but please understand this is an environment that is safe to open up and talk about things. It's non-attribution. We're not going to take and go out and say, Colonel Preacher Brown said this about this person. We want to open up and have an opportunity to express and learn from each other. And just so you'll know, our goal as the FMNP, yes, FMNP hosts, the executive board hosts monthly sessions every fourth Thursday of the month. But that's what the executive board does. Our official goal is to help chapters get started all around military installations and civilian locations. So that's our primary focus. Because as much as this one forum allows people to open up and talk about things, we can't get everyone. We want to hold the leadership, military and civilian leadership in your areas responsible for helping you in your environment. And so with that, we always offer that if anyone is interested in starting a chapter, please let us know. Reach out to the email address that you saw on the invitation, or put your address and information in the chat room, and we'll be glad to reach out to you. Again, feel free to add those questions in the chat room tonight, and we're going to address them, or we'll let you answer or ask your questions as well. So with that, I'm so honored again to introduce you to the beautiful, the strong, the phenomenal Miss Laticia Action Jackson. And she is going to take it away. Take it, Laticia.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. I actually need to say good day. I don't know where any of you are. And so I have to say this. I adore you, Colonel Pritchard Brown. And I took that pause to exhale. I'm sure as many of you as women, we go through this journey of life, and it's very seldom that we meet other women who open their hearts and say, welcome in. And I will have to tell you, from my heart to yours, you are amazing. You're warm, you're welcoming. And so thank you for inviting me into your heart and your space. And so ladies, how are you? I'm going to need you guys to talk to me today. For the next 30 minutes, we are family. You just met me, but I love you already. So if you could describe one word or use one word for today, how are you feeling? Don't use a word that someone wants you to use or what you're supposed to. How are you feeling today? Give me one word before we get started. Just one word to explain how you're doing right now today. Defeated, curious, extraordinary. Ooh, that's a nice, blessed, sick, grateful, accomplished. I love all of these words because overwhelmed. Carrie, thank you for that. And I love being able to be invited to spaces where we can take the mask off. How many of you live every day where you feel like you have to hop into different spaces and put on a mask and become a chameleon? If that's you, say that's me. How many times you walk into places, whether you're in uniform, you're in a space where you're like, I just cannot show up me. If that's you, say that's me. Okay? Because here's the harsh reality. I've worn the uniform. I know what it's like to walk in certain areas, especially as a woman of color, and believe in my mind, I don't belong here. Or have someone overtly or subliminally tell me I don't belong here. Tonight, you belong in this space. And I am going to tell you as well, wherever you go in this world, if you're at the table, if you're standing in the room, you belong there. So tonight we're going to talk about something that to me is very near and dear. It's not something that I can give you. It's not something that Colonel Pritchard Brown can give you. It's not something you can buy. It's something that you have to earn. And that's resilience. You know, I wanted to pause there and let you sit in that. No one's born with resilience. You don't pop out of the womb and enter into this world and have resilience. You have to earn it. And on the path of earning it, it's just like a workout, right? We have people that want to get fit. We want to get healthy. I have people tell me all the time, Action, I want your arms. But then when I tell them what they have to do to get it, they're like, oh, I'm good. We often want to be powerful. We want to feel empowered. We want to be able to walk into spaces and own it. But no one teaches us. Tonight, I'm going to give you a glimpse of how I became resilient. And let me tell you something. There's been so many days on this journey. I am like, wow, really? I get to one place of healing and I think, yay, I've made it. But then another layer and then another layer. How many of you have been in a place in your life where you're like, I conquered this, I've got it. And then you hit a wall and something else happens. If that's you, say, yeah, like sigh, get it out. Raise your hand, right? This is what the FMMP is all about. Getting here, getting raw, getting real, getting honest. So where did this journey for me start? I can still remember the days that I was on the bus driving to Lackland Air Force Base. I don't know about you, but I remember basic training like it was yesterday. How many of you remember when you got onto either a bus or whatever mode of transportation to go to your basic military training? I do. And as a young 19-year-old, I was full of life. I was full of expectation. I knew from a very young age that God had put something so powerful in me and that there was a purpose inside of me. But I'm here to give you a little bit of a glimpse. Without pain and without resistance, purpose is very seldom fulfilled, right? I get to Lackland Air Force Base the very first week there, guys. I was the trash monitor. I walked around picking up trash. Don't despise the early beginnings. I was excited because as you can see, I had tons of energy and I run around. I was the best trash monitor in the world. However, a week into it, my TI comes to me and says, Jackson, you are now an element leader. And I'm like, excuse me, what do you mean, sir? I was put in charge of 15, no, I would say in my bay, there was about 50 other young women. And at that time, I was only 19 years old. I had never led before, but I knew that there was something in me that God had ordained for me and a reason to be there. I made it through basic military training, graduated with honors. I would lead troops 2 and 4, Everywhere we went, I was the element leader. And I was like, I've got this. Coming back one day, one of the TI says, there goes Action Jackson. And that's where Action Jackson, my name, came from. Fast forward through tech school, fast forward to my permanent duty station for that moment. I got stationed at Lackland Air Force Base, and then Randolph Air Force Base, headquarters AFPC. I got there with honors. I was excited. And here's where the harsh reality, and this is where programs like this are essential. I ran into bad leadership. I ran into really bad leadership. How many of you, depending on how long you've been in, had leaders where you just knew when you got there, I'm going to get supported, I'm going to be able to do my job, I'm going to thrive. But when you actually got there, you did not get that support. If that's you, raise your hand. Because that's why this program is here. So many of us go into the military and put that uniform on with hopes and dreams. I was one of them. I ran into really bad military leadership, and my time there, I did 3.5 years. The last 6 months of my duty station, I was sexually assaulted. I went through verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and mental abuse. And I couldn't understand it at that time, why I was going through what I was going through. But hear me though, remember I told you in the beginning that resilience and power and all these things that we need to thrive both in and out of the military, there's a purpose in the pain. There's a purpose in the confusion. I didn't understand at the time why I went through what I went through. But about a few months after that, I had to file an IG complaint. I made the decision to get out of the military. I requested it, got an honorable discharge. And let me tell you something. I don't know if you've ran into anything in life that left a stamp in your head that says that you're not good enough, that there's something wrong with you, that you could have done different. Have you ever been anywhere in your life and that's happened? Someone else's actions harmed you, but we as women often internalize it. Have you been there? Talk to me tonight. Have you been in a place where you showed up authentic? You showed up in your truth. You showed up ready to do the job, but you were met with resistance. How many of you have been there? You guys are awfully quiet tonight, because these are the things that young airmen and young soldiers and young Marines, they get to duty stations and they have hopes, they have expectations. And if you're a leader here on this call tonight, it is your responsibility to make sure that when young troops come in, that not only do they learn their job, OJT, but your job is to lead them, guide them, and to direct them. And I didn't have that leadership. That is one of the main reasons why I am so driven behind my mentoring, is to make sure young girls have the internal, but then the also external support systems to develop them. When I got out of the military, I was very confused about my identity. I was confused about my purpose, but I knew God had a purpose for the pain that I went through. I moved 7 times in 7 years when I got out of the military. And the reason why I moved so many times was I believe that a geographical location would change the pain that I was in. Before I went into the military, it says we are changing, we are the change preventing the cycle from happening. That's right, Colonel. I moved 7 times in 7 years, very confused about who I was, what I wanted. But what I didn't tell you was before I went into the military, I was an abandoned child. I had mother wounds, father wounds. How many of you know that wherever you go, your pain goes with you? Let me say that again. How many of you know that wherever you go, your pain goes with you? Before I went into the military, I had abandonment issues from a father. I felt rejected. I felt unseen. And then I had mother wounds from a mother that suffered from mental health issues. So this 19-year-old young girl, she had to fend for herself. How many of you have ever felt alone and felt like you had to fend for yourself? Let's be honest, okay? Flantering around in the world, not knowing where you belong, where to go for help. I've been there. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to present someone that's not the truth. I was struggling. We have a skewed idea. Christy says we have a skewed idea of resiliency. Resiliency does not mean to keep smiling while someone kicks you in the teeth. That's what's expected. You're absolutely right. And as she alluded to, sometimes we have this narrative that I'm okay. We go through trauma, we don't deal with it, we don't address it, we don't confront it, and we just keep moving and we keep moving. But I'm going to tell you, I don't know where you're at in your life today, but a part of being resilient is not ignoring your traumas. A part of being resilient is being bold and courageous enough to confront those things. It's scary. Let me keep moving forward. I got out of the military. I moved around very, very often. And when I was 29 years old, I ran into my ex-husband at the gym. This man he was just charismatic. He was very fit, very strong. He drew me in. Remember, I told you as a young girl, that 19-year-old had abandonment issues, insecurities, codependency. I saw signs of abuse when I dated him. But how many of you know when there's a lack within you? Okay, I'm going to touch on some stuff tonight that's going to be ouch. When there's a lack in you, sometimes we go outside of us to try to fulfill the void. I was in all of this trauma, unresolved trauma, not knowing what direction to go. I left the military traumatic. I left home traumatic. All of this unresolved trauma, I attracted to me what was in me. He had traumas too that were unhealed. I saw all the signs, the jealousy, the verbal abuse, the emotional abuse, but I married him anyways. Because in my mind, in my 20s, some love was better than no love at all. I was broken. But I'll tell you what, a year into the marriage, I found myself in the closet with hands around my neck. And I remember praying, God, please don't let me die like this. And it was like all of my youth came before me. How did I get here? By this time, I had 4 degrees. By this time, I was in about 30 different health and fitness magazines. I was training professional athletes. Remember, I told you, we keep moving and we keep moving and we keep moving. I never dealt with the root issues of what I had to go on to eventually deal with. I was broken. But on the outside, I got up every day. When I got in front of the camera, I could take good pictures. When I did interviews, I could speak very well. But there were times where I felt so empty. There were times where I felt so alone. I could be in a crowd with cameras and talking, but I felt empty. And you know why? Because I was broken. As I stood with his hands around my neck, I distinctly remember there were 4 guns in the house. And I prayed, God, don't let my life end this way. I promise you, if you save me, I will step away from the titles, the medals, whatever I have perceived myself to be, and I need you to heal me. And by the grace of God, he released his hands, smacked me a few times in my face, and he took off. 3 days later, he was charged with attempted murder. Okay. I'm left with a pile of trauma now from 19 to 29. I left where I was living at with my ex-husband, and I moved with my family. And you know what? I said to myself, self, it's time to do the work. Despite what I was told, if you're beautiful, if you're smart, if you have degrees, I was broken. And I refused to live the life that I was living. And you know what I had to do? I had to get real. And this is where the resilience came in. I had to say to myself, you are broken. You've got mother wounds. You've got father wounds. You have been mentally, physically, and verbally abused. And you know what? I was ready to fight. How many of you have gone through traumas after traumas after traumas, and you just keep moving, but you don't pause? See, let me tell you something. Your busyness prevents you from dealing with it. You will only become resilient when you deal with the very things that have harmed you and deal with the things that are holding you back from being the truth of who you are. How does that sit with you? How does that feel that in order to be real and to be resilient, you have to look your traumas, you have to look your setbacks, you have to look at your limiting self-beliefs in the face, and you have to deal with them? How does that make you feel? Give me a word. I need you guys to talk to me tonight. I only have a short minute and I'm trying to push years of stuff together. How does that make you feel that you have to, ooh, I love that word, terrified, intimidated, vulnerable. Yes, come on, talk to me, guys, vulnerable. What if I told you that vulnerability was a superpower? Sit in that. What if I told you that vulnerability is your superpower? See, it's that moment when you let those layers down. And I'm gonna tell you, as a Black woman, we are taught you're strong, be strong. Well, you know what? Strong things break. And I paused intentionally. Strong things break. But sometimes it's in the breaking that you get to rebuild. Oh, that's so powerful. Did you hear what I said? Sometimes it's in the breaking that you get to rebuild. So I went on this 13-year journey of saying, God, I need you to heal me. And let me tell you what brokenness does. I left my ex-husband, and 9 months later, I found myself in a relationship. Guys, can you hear me? 9 months later, I found myself in a relationship with a different man with the same behaviors of my ex-husband. Stick with me. I found myself 9 months later in a different relationship with a different man with the same behaviors of my ex-husband. What was the common denominator? Talk to me.
You.
The cycle repeated. Yes. Because remember, I told you, wherever you go, your pain goes with you. Oh, I wish that we would say this more to people. Wherever you go, your pain goes with you, whether that's to another unit, whether that's into another marriage, whether that's into another friendship, wherever you go, you are there. And I'm going to tell you, it's the work that people are afraid to do. I left that second abusive relationship and I said, the first one, I will never condone his behavior because abuse is wrong on any level. But I had to look at myself and say, you're a common denominator in this cycle. I saw my mom abused. I saw my sister abused. And I said, you know what? I am breaking this cycle. I went on to a 13-year journey, and hear me clearly. I didn't date. I had to get along with God and myself. I had to go back to the very people that abused me. My father, my mother was mentally abusive, verbally abusive, emotionally abusive. And the funny thing about building resilience is that it doesn't end. It doesn't end. I took 3 years of therapy just dealing with my father wounds. Why didn't he love me? Why was I abandoned? Why did I never feel good enough? And I'm going to tell you, it's in the inner work that you build the resilience. You can get another hairstyle. You can go and get a new makeup done, get a haircut, lose some weight. But the pain inside of you, until it's dealt with, it manifests into different fruits. Why are you always anxious? Why are you always angry? Why are you always on edge? You have to answer that. And the only way you can answer that is to dig up the root. I didn't say the fruit, the root. How many of you are afraid to get to the roots in your life tonight? Be honest, because I'm going to tell you, it stinks. Oh, it stinks. And sometimes what we do is we want to walk past it. Have you ever had something in your refrigerator smell so bad and you keep opening it and you just kind of clean around it, but you don't never find what's really bad in the refrigerator? Because then you have to dig and get to the root of it. That is how resilience is built. No one can hand it to you. You can't buy it. You can't do anything but earn it. And the ability to get back up when you run into these walls. When I left the military, no one could have told me when I went in that I would go through mental, physical, and sexual abuse. To this day, I still have anxiety around white men. My first sergeant was a white man, and I was called into his office for about 8, maybe 9 months, where every day I was forced to stand at attention, and he would curse me out every day for 9 months. And I have to talk to that trauma and say, no more. I talk to those memories in my head and say, you will not control me. But it doesn't mean that the experience that I lived was not real. It doesn't mean the experience that you have had in your life are not real. But what it does mean is that they no longer should control you. Resilience is about digging so deep and plucking up stuff that you have hidden or going into your office and respectfully speaking to your leadership about, I don't like being spoken to like this. I don't like being touched like this. Do you know how many women go through military sexual trauma and they zip their mouth? And they carry it inside of their bosom. When trauma is not released and healed, it messes with your blood pressure. It causes chronic inflammation. I'm telling you. I know this is probably not what you guys thought you were going to hear tonight, okay? But this now, everything that I went through, I get paid to come in to tell my truth. I get paid to stand in the face of things that are unjust. I get to get in the front of abuse and say, this is what abuse looks like. See, because people think that abuse looks a certain way. It doesn't discriminate for your color. It doesn't discriminate from your zip code. It doesn't discriminate from your ethnicity. I've been at conferences where I've spoken. I've had 3-star generals, women, come to me and tell me about their abuse. The problem with us as women, we're afraid. Remember, vulnerability is your power. It's super. It makes you supernatural when you can say, this is what I've been through. And that's what I absolutely love about Colonel Pritchard Brown. We've had some really deep conversations. Vulnerability is your superpower. Resilience is only built when you get raw and real. You know how many women wish that there were more conversations like this? It's difficult, but it must happen. Today, when I go and I speak, I can remember the first time I started talking about my abuse, I would cry. But I've healed. And there's still some times where my husband will rub my neck and I'll do his hand like this, because remember, our brain stores our memories. And I'll gently say to him, honey, thank you for your affection, but that doesn't feel good to me right now. And I'm gonna tell you, every time I think I'm past some things, something triggers it. But that's how I become strong. I don't run from it. I go at it head first. And I don't judge myself for it. I tell that little girl, no, you weren't loved. And if you feel unloved today, it's okay. A bunch of you have got some little girls in you that are crying for you for some compassion. You put on that uniform every day, but you're still a little girl inside of you. And I'm pausing because I want this stuff to sit in here and then get in here. And you must learn your triggers. You must identify, why do I behave this way? I used to have this thing with time. Let me show you about being self-aware. When I was in my 20s, maybe mid-20s, and I were dating, I had this thing with time. If the person I was dating would tell me that he would be at my home at a certain time, I would man that clock like no one's business. And the closer that clock got to the time he was supposed to arrive, I had anxiety. And you know what happened? I realized that my father used to tell me that he was going to come pick me up at a certain time. So I would watch the clock and he would never show up. See, that's that little girl inside of this 45-year-old beautiful woman that pokes her head out and be like, oh, I'm afraid. But you know what I do to her? I say, you're safe now. I had to learn to parent myself. That takes resilience. And resilience is saying, yeah, it hurts, but I'm not going to be ashamed. How can you wear shame underneath your uniform every day? How many have been through things that no one but God knows? See, that shame keeps you from becoming resilient. You will not build resilience until you confront that shame, that anger, that rape, that molestation, that abuse, whatever. You only have the name to it. And today I am free. Oh, I am free. I got remarried at 41. I had my first child at 43 and turned 44 a month later. And now I get to bring my whole self to my daughter. I get to bring her a whole mom. And you know, there's times that I'm sure when she gets older, I'm going to have to share with her that mama was abused. Well, mommy, why isn't grandpa around? Because grandpa makes his own decisions. I'm not that little 19-year-old anymore that was looking for validation. I needed you to tell me I was good. I needed you to clap for me. Today, I clap for myself. And I want for you to learn how to clap for yourself. I want for you to learn how to stand up for yourself. I want for you to learn to use your voice. But if it's someone else's voices that you're listening to, you'll never do it. And I'm getting quiet because I'm pausing in these moments. Let me tell you, I've been in so many rooms. I've met hundreds of thousands of women, and we all share a similar story, but some of us don't share it. By being vulnerable with you, it's my prayer that tonight, something triggered inside of you that you're going to go home and deal with. You are resilient. But just like these muscles, let me show you these things, girl. You know how I got these muscles? Through resistance. Hear me. Muscles grow time under tension. The things that you go through in your life, you have to go through tension. And you know what's so funny about muscular growth? These arms will not get any bigger unless I put more pressure on them. Just because you face adversity doesn't give you permission to walk away. If it's hard, let it build you. If it's hard, let it strengthen you. But also know when it's time to walk away. And a lot of times people see my physical strength and I tell them my physical strength was built from my inner strength. I don't give up easily. Tell me no all you want to. Because when I left the military, I made up my mind, I will never stand in front of someone again and give you the power to verbally abuse me. When I left the military, I made up my mind, I will never stand in a bunch of rooms with men and you get to use your words to sexually assault me. I am not a victim. You are not a victim. You have power within you. The real question is, are you brave enough to activate it? You don't like what's around you, you have the ability to change it. And I'm going to say it again, you're not a victim. Don't let anyone victimize you. Understand your authority. Understand the power that God has given you in here, but you've got to activate it. And the only way it's activated is by being built. Okay, you went through it, but what you went through, don't let it define you. I am not a victim of domestic violence. I am a thriver. I don't want anyone calling me a survivor. No, I thrive. I didn't just survive, I'm thriving. I'm not a victim. I get to choose every day how I choose to set my mind. And when those dark moments come back, I don't run from them anymore. I don't judge them. Yes, I am victorious and so are you. So I want for you this week to start thinking about, what does resilience mean in your life? It's not a buzzword. It's not this, it's March, Women's Empowerment. We're resilient. That is superficial and shallow. You've been through something in your life that you probably have never shared. You're more resilient than you think you are. When you feel yourself, shoulders slumped over, put your shoulders back, put your head up. So what? Yeah, I went through it, but it doesn't define me. Use your voice. You have one. When I started speaking up for domestic violence and telling people what I went through, it freed a lot of women, and it freed me too. I don't need anyone else to share my story. I'm the first to show them, say, I'll share. Because see, by me sharing with you, it frees you to go share with someone else. So that's all the time I have tonight. I condensed a whole 14, 15 years into a little bitty, but the books that I write, the programs I design, I couldn't talk about these things had I not gone through all of this abuse and disappointment and setbacks. And sometimes we sit around and we play the victim. Why me? Why not you? If God can use it to start a fire in an organization, in a home, in a family, why not you? Why not you? Because no one would have told me that young girl that was a fire, that was picking up trash at 19, would now stand on stages. I was a keynote speaker for the Joint Military Women's Symposium. It is the largest joint women's symposium in the world. I had women from Botswana, from everywhere, in every uniform that you can imagine. You know what? I stood there and told my story. But if I would have given up when I felt depressed and I felt anxious and I felt suicidal, when I left my ex-husband, I remember sitting in my car and asking God to take my life. There was so much pain. I could not run from it. I was broken into pieces. I was shattered, but I knew I had to be shattered in order to be rebuilt. And the rebuilding is where you build your resilience. Don't be afraid to get broken. Broken glass can be repaired. Your testimony, let's see, your testimony are a proof that the Almighty is great and looks out for the best interests in hard times. Yes, and teaches us that we also, despite our current situation, I needed that relationship. Thank you. You're welcome. You are brave. You are strong. You are a great example. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And you know what? I am brave. And I am strong. I'm all those things. And I had to accept those things. It takes bravery to walk away from things that you know are harming you. It takes bravery to speak up. Let me tell you, when I was 19 in the military, one of the biggest issues I had is that God has gifted me with leadership. I was young, but I knew it. And I would see things that were unrighteous, and I would speak up. When you speak up in the face of unrighteousness, people are not going to like you, but that's okay. I knew then at that young age that the fire in my belly will be used to glorify God and to set things on fire. I am a fire starter, and I'm okay with that. I want for you to get uncomfortable. I know you see injustices every day, but you stay quiet because you're afraid. Sometimes you have to speak up, but do it in a righteous manner. That builds resilience, because you know what? There's an airman, there's a Marine, there's a civilian that's waiting for you to show up. Maybe it's your family. I don't know if you're like me. I have a daughter now, and I will not let another woman be the first image of womanhood to her. I am the first image of womanhood. And I want her to know her mother is a lion, but her mother's also a flower. It's okay to show her vulnerability. There's some days I'm so overwhelmed and I cry. Colonel Pritchard and I have been texting. I'm like, girl, your girl is woo. But remember, vulnerability is your girl's superpower. And I cry on my husband, you know. Some days I just want to curl up with him. And see, I don't have to always be strong because I am strong. You don't always have to be strong because you are strong. But you do need safe spaces where you can go in and say, I'm just not there today. And that's why I actually met or got introduced to Colonel Pritchard Brown, Sister Dia, through Lieutenant General Beagle, when I was a keynote speaker at this year's Fort Leavenworth Women's History. And when I got through talking, he was like, ooh, we need you. I want to show up for this program and teach this. I told the men, this is what's interesting. When I was a keynote speaker at Fort Leavenworth, it was Women's History Month, but 90% of the room were men. And you know what I told them? I thanked them, and I got very emotional because remember, I was an abandoned daughter. I said, the woman that you pass by every day, she needs you. She may not know how to articulate it, but she needs you. There is something that men give women that another woman can't give a woman. My mother did the best she could. But to stand in that room with all these male leaders and for them to see that broken girl that became this powerful, brave woman, to say, we need you, it's powerful. But if you don't ask for what you need, the need will always go unmet. Speak up. So I hope that this helped you. It's short, it's fast, it's raw, it's real, but this is exactly what it is. And I want for you every day to create your own mantra. Mine every day is that I am powerful, I am intentional, I am purposeful. And I live that out. I'm not afraid of my power because it doesn't come from me. I'm not my power source. It comes from the Most High. And let me tell you, when you surrender and you're a vessel, he flows through you. Just maybe what you went through, he did it and allowed it so you could go back and save someone else. The little girls that I get to talk to today, and they see these muscles and they see this, oh, you're strong, and they want to touch you. I'm like, guess what? I was a little girl like you too. And I was abused. I didn't feel safe. And they're like, but look at you. Yeah, look at me now, but I was once your age. You've got to be vulnerable and go back to, we only focus on, some of you will look at Colonel Pritchard Brown and be like, oh, ma'am, yes. She's got her own story. The woman that you walk past every day has her story. Be kind, be compassionate, acknowledge her presence. You don't know what she's going through. If you're a leader, sit with your team. Really care and ask the questions, how are you feeling today? Not how are you doing? Do you hear me? How are you feeling? Well, you want to know how I feel today? I felt exhausted. And I told Sis Dia, when your girl hang up, I'm going to take a nap. I'm exhausted. Motherhood is the hardest thing I've done. And your girl's done some hard things. This little bitty human is demanding. And it's okay. I'm not going to put on a face. Some days I wake up like, yes. And some days I'm like, is it 7:45 already? See, it's when we get with people and we're honest and we don't show up curated and a chameleon, people will open up to you. This program was made for that. What I do in my coaching academy, I tell the women when they come to my workshops or classes, bring a shovel. And they look at me like, because we're going to dig. Bring a shovel because we're going to dig. Bring a couple of bags because we're going to dig up some stuff. And you have to carry all these bags home with you, but you don't have to unload all of them at the same time. Whatever you don't confront doesn't change. I like confrontation. I do. And confrontation's not a bad thing. And we as women have been taught that, just be quiet. I'm okay. Passive aggressive. No, I am assertive. And I want to assert that I'm not okay. Not aggressive. And if we learn to teach different communication styles, and if you were taught how to be assertive and that it's okay, maybe you speak up more for yourself too. It's okay. You have a voice. Don't mute yourself. So my name is Laticia Action Jackson, and I am your sister in Christ. I am your fellow woman in arms, and I love you. And I really hope that something I said today, you don't have to take all of it. It's a lot. It's my truth. I hope that you walk in your truth. And you think about, when you think about, women are taught to be superwomen, right? I think that's so overplayed. Be a resilient woman. Don't be a superwoman. Be a resilient woman. That you make up in your mind, no matter what this world brings you, what happens, you're going to bounce back. And you're also going to ask for help. That's what a resilient woman does. She says, I can't do this alone. And she goes and gets help. Therapy has been the best thing for me. I never understood why I behaved in some of the ways I did and why I believed in some of the ways I believed. I had a lot of abuse. It's been a journey, and it's not over. And remember that resilience is just like a workout. It's a lifestyle. Oh, that's so good. You don't take resilience on and off. I don't just do a workout once a week or once a year. I do it on a consistent basis. Take time every week at the end of the week and journal. Pick one focus area and attack it. Uh-oh, my phone is trying to die on me. So what questions do you guys have for me? I don't know if this is what you were expecting, but when Colonel Pritchard and Sister Dia and I talked, I was like, girl, I'm gonna let it all out.
And I wanted you to. I'm sitting here, I'm like, look, I can go a whole another hour and a half, 2 hours, but I remember other people have time. For those of you who have heard her story and you wonder why, when she said it earlier about how close we were, and we were introduced, just like she said, through Lieutenant General Beagle, because he knew me. He was my first officer leader to start the first FMMP chapter after I started the one in CASCOM in 2020. That Brigadier General Beagle at Fort Jackson became Lieutenant General Beagle, who started the chapter at 10th Mountain Division, who then became Lieutenant General CAT Commander, who started the one at Fort Leavenworth. I'm saying this for a reason. This isn't a fly-by-night program. This isn't a fly-by-night vision of ours or goals. Everything she told you, hopefully it resonated with you. Because when she and I started talking, it was like, okay, don't ever call me by my rank and name again. I am your sister right now from this moment on. So I've officially adopted you. And she adopted me too. The reason we do this for men and women, and I'm just going to hone in on what she says, is because some people just don't have those voices. We are going to open it up tonight to allow you to ask those questions to her from what you've heard. Reach out and think about questions that you've had that you think she can possibly answer. We have a whole nother, and I try to keep everybody on their time because your time is valuable. But you did, matter of fact, you did just exactly what we wanted you to, Laticia. We wanted you to spend that time resonating with people. And if you just look at the chat room, you'll see exactly how that resonates with so many. And so right now, what we're going to do is open it up to the chat room. If you have questions, if you want to raise your hand and talk to all of us yourselves, let's make this a dialogue and a discussion. And again, the goal of this is not for people to just focus on this one platform once a month, every fourth Thursday of the month. We want you to have that drive, that fire, that motivation, go out and hopefully start a chapter in your own area so you can have more Laticia Action Jacksons come to your areas, or more speakers and more retirees and active duty and civilians come here and share their stories. Because as much as we want to reach everyone with this session, there's so many that we can't reach because they're in their own world where they have to deal with their environment. So Laticia, thank you. Thank you so much for just being open, being vulnerable, because guess what? We learned what being vulnerable can do. You too can be sitting in front of a host of women and men and sharing your story. I've shared my story. My sister shared her story. And for those who don't know, she's not on tonight because she's actually helping host a retirement ceremony that someone who didn't think they even deserved a retirement ceremony, a command sergeant major now, was like, I'm not gonna do it. My sister said, not only will you do it, I'm gonna help you do it myself. And so that's commitment that we are part of. And we've committed to all of you, and we want you to commit to others. And so with that, one of the key things that I want to inform you all of, for those of you that have been on here before, you've heard my sister's journey about how she got passed over for colonel. You've heard how she had a toxic leader who did not give her justice due and reward her and things of that nature. By the grace of God, I'm going to tell you, 2 weeks ago, she got announced from Congress that she got her 06. And so for those that didn't know that, she got her colonel. And that is the resilience and the power and the strength that we have to have that faith, to know that that strength has to be there. And she didn't do it alone. She has that village. So we are your village. And so with that, I want to start with the first question. Everybody else start thinking of your own questions. But I want to start with the first question. This is for everyone in here that knows that shy young girl, or that shy woman, or that shy civilian employee, or that shy soldiers, airmen, Marine, Coast Guard, the shy one that lacks confidence, that isn't brave, that isn't strong. How do we help them find their voice? And this is for you, Action. How do we help them find their voice to where they, not understanding that the strength is built from this resilience, or listening on the session, how do we come to them and say, I have to show you sometimes before you can figure it out. We have to understand. So what would you say to them and the leaders on here that need to go out and help those that they know exist out there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I first want to really drive home. I was thinking about this the other day. When we think about finding something, right? Stay with me. If I find something, for instance, if I find this cup, it's already within its state of being, right? I found it like this. We often tell young soldiers, whatever branch they're in, go find your voice. So what happens is they're looking for it. Well, I got to find my voice. What we need to do as leaders is create opportunities where we say, we're going to create courses, we're going to create classes, we're going to create groups where we're going to help you develop your voice. Do you see the difference of finding versus developing? And what happens is when we allow creating safe spaces for someone to develop their voice. That means we also have to be courageous enough to evoke conversations around topics and hear their thoughts on it. The very thing that I struggled with as a young person in military, I had an internal voice, and I was taught in my home life that if I don't stick up for me, no one else would. So that gave me, unfortunately, that gave me plenty of opportunities. Excuse me, guys, my phone keeps beeping. Because I didn't have a safe home growing up, I learned that my voice is going to speak for me, right? And I don't want that for these young people. I want for them to be able to come into space with good leaders like yourself, and you intentionally create opportunities. For instance, once a month, you create talk sessions. You go through, you survey them. What areas of development do you want to work on? And one of the things I find is missing, we do not teach communication. We don't teach the communication styles. So if I grew up in a family, especially culture plays a huge role, and I was told not to speak up, I become passive. I'm the one in the back that says, okay, sure. Yeah, you're right. Or if I grew up abused, I become aggressive. I'm gonna prove you wrong. You've got to create opportunities to teach how to properly communicate. You have to teach and create opportunities to really get to know your soldiers or your airmen, because everyone comes with a story. You assume that she doesn't want to speak up, where you may not know she came from a family where if she spoke up, she was abused. So it starts with, as leaders, creating opportunity to get to know your soldiers or whatever it is that you are, what branch you're in, creating the opportunity. I call them get to know you sessions, right? I love when I'm with young girls, I love sitting on the floor. I remember I was invited to speak in, this will give you a perfect example, at this organization called ID, and it's identifying me, right? And it was all these girls, and they came in groups. I separated them with people that they didn't know. And they were like, I don't know her, I don't like her. And I said, well, we've got 2 days together, and we're all gonna get to know each other. So we would sit down, and I put paper in front of them. I said, write 3 things down that you want me to know about you. And one of the girls was like, I'm not doing this. And I sat next to her, I said, what's wrong? I don't like anything about myself. Catch me. I said, well, I see you doodling on your paper. She was like, yeah. I said, you like art? This little bit of gleam came up. I said, you like to draw, don't you? Yeah. I said, well, what do you like to draw? See, I found a point of entry. We don't take time to find points of entry with people, period. We're just doers. Do this, do this, do this. So-and-so's got an attitude. Well, have you ever asked them how they're doing? Have you ever asked them, is there anything going on with their personal life, their professional life? See, without relationship, there's no understanding of a person. You make assumptions. That's how you help that shy person. You create opportunities to get to know him or her. What do you like? Where are you from? What's important to you? And I promise you, when you build trust, people become more vulnerable. Without trust, I'm not sharing nothing with you because I don't trust you. I don't think you have my best interest in mind. And best interest in mind is not by what you say to me, it's by your actions. I tell young girls when they're dating, you don't just trust a young boy. Let his actions and his consistency develop. Trust, hear me. And through trust, through his consistency, you can grow in love. You don't fall in love, because if you fall, you're just tripping. But when you grow, it's a gradual process. Trust is a gradual process. If you're not consistent with me as a leader, I don't trust you. If you're nice to me one day and then the next day you're like flippant, I don't trust you. I'm gonna do a job, but I don't trust you. So that's it. Create opportunities of getting to know them on a human level. Human. I think we've lost the sight of humanity in this world. How many times do people walk past you and be like, how are you? Great. Living the American dream. No, that's not my dream. I'm not living the American dream. I'm living Leticia's dream. We just make blanket statements because we're hurried. Everyone's in a hurry. I remember when I worked as a public health officer for the Navy, the 3 years I was there, we had about 10 suicides. Broke my heart. I worked as a public health officer. I did program designs for disease management. But let me tell you something. I had more young girls come into my office under the premise of stress management to talk to me about the sexual abuse they were going through in their unit. And I would say, so-and-so, well, where's your leadership at? They don't care. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, I don't trust them. And I'm like, but you know, I'm a mandated reporter. If you're being abused, I have to report it. They would come to me. You know why? Because every time I saw them, good morning, what you been up to? You get your workout in today? How are your kids? Da-da-da. I grew trust. I had a young girl, I would never forget this. I was coming out of my car, heading into the hospital, and she was like, Miss Jackson, Miss Jackson. I'm like, hey, so-and-so, what's wrong? And she was like, he punched me, I got it. And I was like, slow down, what's going on? And she was like, I had to come find you. And so I brought her into my office. Her husband was beating her. I was not her leader. She knew me, she was a radiation tech. But every day I passed by the clinic and I talked to all of them. Good morning, you get your workout in, you say your prayer today, what you eating for lunch? Where y'all going this weekend? I built relationships, okay? I don't care what your rank is, I appreciate it, I respect it, but if you don't bring humanity behind that uniform, you're not going to touch anyone. They're not coming. They don't trust you.
Laticia, we have a question in the chat room, and it is from Lisa Schilling. Lisa, would you like to ask your question? Or would you like to ask us to ask it for you?
Miss Lisa, hello, darling.
Can you hear us, Lisa? Okay,
It's
well,
okay.
I'll ask it for her. Let me go on to that question. Let me ask it for, or Mario, you want to ask it for her?
Yes, ma'am, I got it.
Go ahead.
So Lisa Schilling says, I find that that's a big issue within the military, that members are afraid to be honest for fear of reprisal. Do you have any advice regarding this? So she's saying that leaders are afraid in the military because they fear reprisals.
So whom do they feel reprisal from? Give me a little bit more clarification so I can answer it better.
I believe she was talking regarding your conversation. There was a conversation about being honest and being upfront.
Oh, Lisa can't unmute. Hold a minute. Let me help her with that. That's what it is. Lisa, Mari, you want to unmute her?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Here she is. I see her.
Lisa, I asked you to unmute yourself. I have
Lisa, are you there? There she is.
Hear me?
Hi, Miss Lisa.
Hello. Thank
Hi,
you
honey.
for everything you've said tonight. I really appreciate it. It hit home. It was great.
You're welcome.
With that being said, with the discussions with airmen or Marines or troops, whomever, I find that, so I do try to start conversations, but I feel that most people in the military don't want to be honest, whether it's about some type of trauma in the past or current trauma, or even like suicidal ideations, anything of that nature, that personal, that they don't want to be honest for fear that they may lose their job or, you know, be referred to mental health and those types of things. So I think they're afraid. So what advice do you have to try to have these conversations without them fearing for some type of reprisal?
Laticia, before you answer that question, let me narrow down what. So there's a stigma that soldiers feel that they are labeled with. And if, of course, in the military, it used to be that way. There was a stigma if you had any mental health, if you went to see the doctor, if you said you needed help, they felt you weren't strong enough. And that stigma being placed on someone broke down their level of confidence. And so I'm so glad you asked that question. I want her to address it because I know in her academy, the Empowered Academy, what she helped here again, she says they have to teach how to be resilient and build. And so with that understanding, and it's not just military, that's why I wanted to bring this up. It's civilian also. So Laticia, look at both military and civilian, because
Yeah.
you're on both sides. Address
Yeah.
both of those sides of the fence for Lisa and the rest
Yeah.
of us, please.
This is a really good question. And, I'll be honest with you, it saddens me. I had a young girl, I remember she was in flight school, and I remember her telling me that she had a lot of anxiety, she couldn't sleep. And I asked her, I said, well, what's going on? And she was like, well, I really can't get into it, because if I tell you, you'll flag me, and then I won't be able to go finish flight school. And I distinctly remember I said, shame on us as a system. Okay, we got to look at the system. If you don't create policies and make environmental changes, if I don't feel safe, then I'm not going to come to you. We need to normalize conversations around mental health. We need to normalize conversations around it's okay to be anxious. We need to normalize conversations around stress. And what happens is when we never talk about these things, right? And then all of a sudden someone comes and they're running into this particular issue with her. I never got to the root of it, but whatever the root was, it was causing anxiety. She was afraid to get to the root because of the policies. So on both sides of it, with the military as well as the civilian sector, we've got to have more conversations around mental health. Why are we waiting till someone commits suicide to start saying things like, we're here for you? Well, obviously you're not, because I've been in this unit or I've been in this job for this long. And up until now, I haven't seen classes on stress management or stress regulation. I don't have any kind of groups where I can go where I feel like I belong. So it has to be, I think the military and the civilian sector are asking people to come in. They say come as your whole self, but they don't really want that. They want for you to conform to the needs of what they need. They don't focus on the human. And that's why it goes back to what I said. You've got to create moments where you sit with your people. And it has to be consistent. Why are we waiting until Mental Health Awareness Month to talk about mental health issues? Why are we waiting till another woman gets raped to talk about we have zero policy and no tolerance? Well, I never hear you talk about it. And the reason why she doesn't support it is because no one talks about it. And when she does, she's victimized even further. We're asking people to form to the environment instead of the environment forming to the needs of the people. And
Well,
it's a
Laticia,
structural issue.
I would like to add, and this is where we as sisters are able to help educate others and the rest of the team, because there's going to be some more people that want to make some comments, I know. But I wanted to let you all know, and I've shared with a number of people, it's not the service, it's not the Army, it's not the Air Force, the Marines, it's people. And as she was teaching earlier, it's the leadership, it's the people that you have to know are responsible for the reputations of our organizations. One bad leader can make it bad for the entire, because that's that impression that soldier or civilian is going to walk away with. Well, the whole Army thinks this way because that person treated me this way. And I'm so glad we're talking about this. And I want everybody, feel free to raise your hands and talk, because each of us has had different experiences with bad leaders that we begin to think it's the institution or the organization that's bad. And it's not, it's the person. And so you have people on this call tonight, or those that are starting up FMP chapters or other organizations, and the Army has taken notice. I'm sure the Air Force and the Marines and all, there are leaders that are now saying, wait, we have to police ourselves.
That's
we have
right.
to come up and say and acknowledge that there's a problem, because we can't have any more reports of secret sexual abuse cases like one service just recently had. But we know about the Army services, we know about the Navies, we know about all those historical cases. So the leadership, and that's why it's so important that we have this dialogue, because the leadership is responsible for changing that. But we have to hold our leaders accountable.
accountable.
I'm so honored that we have on here tonight that I always see her. When I see her, I just, my whole heart warms. Lieutenant General retired Kathleen Gainey has been my mentor for years, my second mom. So Laticia, I want to introduce you to Kathleen Gainey, Lieutenant General retired. There she is. Wave again, man, for her. She can tell you the changes that the military has made because she helped them make those changes. And that's
great.
where we as leaders are responsible for getting in there and saying, not under my watch, not on my,
right.
I'm not gonna allow this. Ma'am, would you like to make any comments?
I loved the talk, Laticia, because we didn't have anybody like you when I was coming along. And yes, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't come forward, but I vowed that whenever I saw things, that I would reach out to other people to help change things. Maybe I wasn't their leader, but we can do a lot as sisters to help them through that and maybe plant the seeds to people to let them know problems exist. When they are not, they don't feel they can come forward. Sometimes we can come forward and say, you may not be aware, but you've got an issue and I think you need to deal with it.
That's right.
But that's where, again, by our resilience, we can demonstrate the right behavior and get it through to somebody. So that's how we can help each other.
That's right. And I appreciate that. You know, I think about myself as a 19-year-old airman, and I will tell you, I was so afraid when I started to experience the things that I did. I was afraid, you know, who do I tell, you know, these men are making these sexual comments and coming on to me and I'm getting cursed out. Like I had so much anxiety and I had nowhere to go. And it saddens me that I was under all of this leadership. I was at headquarter level where there was tons of leaders and I went to them and no one did anything. And I think that as leaders, when we stand by and we don't help, we are just as complicit as those who are doing the behavior. And you know what, to be honest with you, sometimes it takes going against the grain to cause a fire. And I was a fire starter. What they were doing was wrong. And the other airmen that had gone before me, they just kept quiet. And I don't think there's any power in silence. If we don't speak up for each other, how do I know that the person behind me and the person behind them and the person behind them, it will continue to go on, just like domestic violence. If we don't talk about it, then when it happens, now everyone's like, well, how did it happen? It's been happening. It's been happening on your clock. We turn a blind eye and that's where that courageous, resilient leader gets everyone in a room and say, hey, bring your lunch. It's going to be difficult, but we're going to sit down and we're going to dissect these issues. Why do you have airmen and women being killed because they spoke up for someone that was molesting them or raping them? That's a structural issue. It's not new. So thank you for the work.
Exactly. And it's what you talked about, the bravery to come forward.
Yeah.
Even if it's not on your own behalf, on someone else's behalf.
Yes. And you know, that's developed. When we talk about leadership, that is one thing we don't talk about bravery, right? We talk about the hard skills, the soft skills. Yeah, great, thanks. But what about bravery, right? And the only way we can talk about bravery is to model it. I can't tell you to do the very things that I don't model. When I talk to my daughter about whatever it is, I'm not going to talk to her about something that I don't model first. Because then when she says, well, Mom, you don't, she's not going to be able to say that. Because if I say it, it's going to be because I model it. We need to start becoming models of what we want to see changed. You know, I'm a fireball. This stuff is real to me.
So ladies, I want to introduce you to someone this evening, and I just texted her saying, I'm going to call on you. And I want you to hear her story really fast. And we're going to have her on later on as a speaker as well. But I would like to introduce you to Sydney Jacques. I like saying it, Jacques. I'm probably saying it wrong, Sydney. But here's why I want to introduce you to her. Sydney, I want you to tell them who you are, what you've done, and why you and I have met.
Yes, ma'am. First off, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for calling on me. And thank you for introducing me. So this is my first meeting that I'm actually participating and listening to. And I'm so grateful to be listening to this. Thank you so much for putting this on and welcoming me in. So my name is Sydney Jacks. I'm a major. I am the first Ranger tabbed and scrolled woman. I was the regimental S1 for the 75th Ranger Regiment. Before that, I was the first female in any of the 3 infantry battalions in 2nd Brigade 82nd. I am AG. I've always been AG. I'm not infantry. I'm very proud to be AG. And I got very mentally messed up by the time I left the 75th. And Ranger school was horrific. I did the whole school twice, and my purpose for not quitting was inevitably to actually fulfill the Ranger Creed, even though I didn't feel like the school actually upheld it itself. And a lot of the pain and the trauma that I went through manifested in some pretty horrific things for me. And once I was healed, and I moved up to DC to work for IPSE, and I finally was able to remove myself and heal. I started mentoring, and I'm not necessarily mentoring. I started reaching out to other women that had been through Ranger school or been through certain units, and just checking on them and seeing if they're okay. And what I quickly realized was that was one of the most healing things for me, because I realized how common my story was. I realized how many other young women were going through the similar thing. I'm really condensing the story of how the reaching out happened and everything. And I can talk about that in a future session or whatnot. But I started realizing how common our stories were, and that grit that it takes to make it through or to survive in certain environments is many times that thing that keeps us from talking, or keeps us from throwing other people or throwing units, quote unquote, under the bus, or holding people accountable. And then I started realizing that our stories are so similar. And I started an Instagram page where I was just like, screw it. I mean, what are they going to do to me that hasn't already happened? If this ruins my career, it's about intestinal fortitude in my mind, and helping people and actually being publicly honest. So I started sharing my stories. I started just kind of sharing things that I was having conversations with other women about, just to start that conversation. And I'm listening to this conversation, and everything is so true, and everything is, I relate to so much of this. And I do think a lot of these conversations are happening, and I do think our younger women are starting to have these conversations with each other. But the real courage and the real bravery, and I'm learning how to manage this, is publicly talking about it. The hate, the cyber abuse of even just junior enlisted men, what they feel comfortable to comment on my things or DM me. That's the fear that I have of publicly putting my face out there. Does trigger my paranoia, especially being here in DC, and all it takes is one crazy person. But that's the bravery that I'm seeing in young women that have been a part of my kind of programs for a year now, and their ability to start talking up publicly, or their ability to take it outside of these mentorship groups and take it outside of these safe spaces and going into that dangerous space. Mm-hmm. That's the next step, that we need to start having that type of courage and going into that dangerous area, because it's terrifying. Because the imposter syndrome, the am I right? All of those psychological things, and establishing these safe spaces is so important, just to get that courage and get that energy to go out into those dangerous spaces. I mean, we're literally, how we're talking about it is prepping for war. That's literally what we do. We train in a safe space, in a safe environment, to go into that dangerous space. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't know if you have advice on that, on how to enter that dangerous space, because I there's some weeks where, I mean, like right now, I'm kind of going through a really low point right now of just, if a post goes viral, it's miserable for me, because of the hate and the criticism and the being accused of lying and all of those types of things, because of that dangerous space that we need to start infiltrating. So I don't know if you have advice on that.
So Letitia, before you answer, I wanted to
Yes.
tell you, and here's how we were connected. Someone saw her story, her journey, and connected her with me. And so the 6 degrees of separation of someone knowing about a program that offers a safe platform for the very person that they know needs a safe platform. But we're not just a safe platform. We're a safety blanket. We're going to stand next to you. How many of you all remember the burning the bras? Okay, you saw it in history. Probably some of you are not old enough. Ma'am, you and I can probably talk about that. I know I might not have been old enough, but my mama told me about it all the time. How many of you know people that will stand next to you or stand in front of you and take that bullet for you? We always talk about war and going to war, and I'll take a bullet for you. We're receiving bullets every day. They're just not in the form of actual ammo that's going to penetrate our skin, but they penetrate our soul. And what happens is, just like she said, and she and I are going to talk more because she's my sister too. Y'all, we're going to have the biggest family in the world. I'm just going to say that. But we're going to have her on later on because we have more people that have identified the same need for a safe space, but not just a safe space. You need a village. How many of y'all know we raise kids with our village? You need a village to help you have that strength. And as Letitia talked about earlier, you have to have somebody show you what bravery looks like. General Gainey said, you have to show you how leadership, right leadership is. And so I want you to take a moment, Letitia, and I know we have, I love when we have dialogues and time just flies by because it's 1927 right now. But you know what? If you allow us a little bit more time, I want Letitia to just give you her thoughts, and then we're gonna conclude. Although I hate that, I always stay on. We always stay on after to say if anyone else wants to stay on and talk, we'll end our formal portion. But Letitia, what are your thoughts? And how do you, to include the academy that you have, the empowerment sessions that you run? I know you've spoken, but you actually have a platform, and we as partners, you and I have already partnered up to have those that come to this program, and in local chapters, we provide them the resources so that they can reach out and get continuous support. So on top of answering our question, what else do you offer? Over.
Yeah, I definitely. So one of the things that I want to talk about with empowerment, if you've ever looked up the word empowerment with the letter E, it means to give authority, to give power. I decided a long time ago when I went through my healing, no one gives a woman power or authority, right? It is her divine right. What we have to do is teach her how to develop it and activate it. And oftentimes when we tell women, well, we're going to empower you, and if that means that I'm coming to you or to General Gainey, I'm going to always feel in a deficit. And empowerment is doing the inner work. And so when I came up with Empower Coaching Academy, I looked at the key things that a woman needs to build: her communication, her ability to speak and develop her voice. These are the inner things that we must develop in a woman for her to go to battle. When I was trying to heal and going, kind of alluding to what Sydney said, it was like I was looking around for people to validate my story. You don't need validation, Sydney, and I'm going to answer your question. Your lived experience is your lived experience. And no one can invalidate that unless you give them permission to. And I will tell you, when I started speaking about domestic violence, I had my then ex-husband, I think he saw me on either NBC News, or I do a lot of this on national and international TV. He sent me an email. He had a restraining order, but he found my email in one of my presentations and told me to stop sharing my story. I'm making him look bad. And I told him, if you ever contact me again, I will call the cops on you again. He was even trying to bully me from that. So the work that I do through the academy is teaching women how to develop their inner power and then giving them the skills to actually activate that into action. And so what Sydney is really talking about is, I know my lived experience. I know that there are other people that have gone through it. Now, the goal is, how do we make her strong internally so she can go out externally and share her story? No one can tell her story but her. Period. And that's what empowerment is. It's the courage to activate that inner courage to thrive in the face of adversity. Just because you're moving forward does not mean that there's not going to be resistance. It's not the resistance that stops you. It's the lack of belief in yourself and your own story and your own power that stops you. It's inner work, and it's difficult work. Undoing the lies that you were told you're not good enough. The abuse was your fault. No, they were wrong. They were wrong. You don't get to victimize me. My voice is my voice, and I'm going to utilize it. So Sydney, go ahead.
Go ahead, Laticia. Go on.
I need to see your beautiful face. I want to say this to you directly. You do not need to justify or respond to anyone that comes to you to deny what you've experienced. The reality is, whenever you expose things, right? It's like being in a dark room and you come on and you turn the light on. It forces people to get in a position of doing things differently. They're angry with you because of the exposure. You don't stop the movement because you experience resistance. You build yourself up. And when you need to cry, cry, but keep going. You don't stop in the middle of war when someone's shooting at you. You find different tactics. You don't give up. You are going to make an impact. You went through what you went through. God will use you, but you must be equipped eternally to withstand externally. You've got to do the inner work. So what? You don't believe me? I owe you nothing. I owe you nothing. I owe you no justification. I don't justify, well, you didn't go through abuse. Have a great day. I'm not giving my energy that, because see, while you're distracted, responding to their DMs and responding to their ignorance, and I mean that with utmost respect, they're getting you off of your game. Let's have her doubt herself. Doubt is a part of life. But if you have a moment of doubt, you get back with yourself and you recalibrate. You don't let anyone move you off of your position, your post. This is what God has equipped you to do. Cry, but the stronger you are internally, you lock with your arms with other people. And I'm going to tell you, systems must change. They want to force women out of the systems versus destructuring systems and rebuilding them. They're mad at you. Okay. And I remember when I spoke at the Joint Women's Leadership, you could hear a pin drop in there. And I said to them, as women, we're afraid to say what things really are. We say, oh, well, he just came on to me the wrong way. No, he sexually abused you. Oh, well, he kind of hit me. No, he was violent towards you. And I told them, we've got to stop calling things red when they're really green. What I mean by that is tell the truth. As women, we minimize our experiences because we're afraid of what they will think. You've got to get so strong in your conviction that whether they believe you or not, you're still telling your truth. You are going to set things on fire, and you need people that are going to be around you that are fire starters, that are right there to lock arms with you and say, burn it down. That takes bravery, and it's scary.
I'm going to jump in, and I'm so glad you said that, because Sydney we're going to have time for her at a later date to talk and to bring more people in. But Sydney, I want to say this to you and to everyone else. Social media, you can control social media. Don't let it control you. Yep. Your message is reaching more people than you can imagine. Only the ones that are trolls, and we know what trolls are going to come in and try to stop you from delivering that message. But I know you can teach more and reach more by what you continue to do. I can't tell you how many times people close the door on me with the FMMP. Can you hear me? I can't tell you how many, and General Gainey knows from the time we started this, and she was there supporting with the, let's say, 5 people that wanted me to not have this program, and my sisters in arms who are helping us do this FMMP program and have built it. I just found it. They have built it. the Maris, the Claudias, the Sierras, and General Gainey being our, the number of people that wanted us to not do this is overshadowed by the number of people that know we needed to do.
That's right.
And so the number of people that are spending the 5 to 10 minutes of talking to you and trying to talk you out of saying things, or trying to discourage you, or trying to defeat your confidence, know that there's twice as many, 10 times as many, and now you know a whole bunch of us sitting here, and even then some, that are there to help encourage you. And like she said, we lock arms. I've had more than enough phone calls from commanders, from young soldiers, from mothers who've said, my daughter's in the Army and she's experiencing this. And I heard of your program back then. I personally, and the women on the FMMP board, and the women that open up the chapters, and men and women, because guess what? Men have mothers. Men have daughters, sisters,
That's
wives,
right.
girlfriends, and nieces. And so for people to think that the FMMP is only for women, they're wrong, because we have great men out there that want to protect their sisters, mothers, daughters, wives, nieces, and girlfriends. And if you're not theirs, you're somebody's. And so leaders have to look at it that way. And so I appreciate you being on. I know we're going to talk more about it at a later date. I'm going to have you on. But before we even get to that date, you and I will be talking. Because here again, I've already adopted myself into your family, and you're already in my family now. So let me know who's bothering you. I'll respond to those trolls. That's what we do for each other. And that's what we have to ask, and not be afraid to ask for that type of support. We don't have you ask because we're like, just join a session. You're going to find that support there no matter what. But there are so many out there that need that support system that they don't even know it, and they're shy and they don't want to cause the attention. A lot of people don't like attention. We're okay with it, clearly. I used to joke with people and say, look, as you can tell, I'm very shy. I'm not. And that's why Laticia and I connected so well. And I have followed in General Gainey's footsteps for years, and I continue to promote how awesome she is, because had she not done what she did, I wouldn't be where I am. And so many other great women that have done what they've done, the Gwen Binghams of the world, the Nadja West of the world. And I can name the General Laura Richardsons of the world, the Dunwoodies, oh my gosh, the General Dunwoodies of the world, my military role. I could go into tons of civilians. I'll just say two names. I will say two names that have broken barriers. Secretary of the Army, Christine Wormuth. And the next person I'm going to say is our Vice President of the United States. That was in my sorority sister. I won't go there. I'm sorry. But the point is, look at the barriers they've broken. So if they can do it, we can do it too. Because they started, just like Laticia said, they started as that young girl as well. Yeah. How did they get to where they were? They didn't have a special sauce at the beginning. They grew that special sauce, and people poured into them. Like the women that have poured into my life, and the men that have poured into my life to show me what right looks like. And so my goal is to always come back and pour back into someone else's life. And that's what everyone on this session has to do, but I believe you're already doing it if you dialed in. And so thank you all. I'm going to have to end it because I want you all to have a great night. We went 8 minutes over, but you know what? Like I said, we're going to stay on to end the formal portion. But Laticia, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know you are my sister under Christ, and I will always be there. But oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I will be giving her advice on being a mom. Don't worry. Please, she knows she can pick up the phone, and I'm like, it's okay. Do not feel bad if you walk into your husband with the baby just like this and hand her over. Just here.
Oh, thank you.
You are not really a bad mother. You are not a bad mother.
Oh, thank you.
We'll talk.
I wanted to, before I left, I see a lot of people asking, how do they get in contact with me? I am going to make sure that Sister Dia actually sends you guys, I'm going to put a direct link to my program, Empower to the Next Level, which is for resilience building. I also do one-on-one coaching, and I also, and General Gainey, this is my ask for you. I would ask that if you know any installation or any organizations that are looking for a dynamic speaker, I do speak as well. And so I will make sure that Sister Dia has my information. She has all of you guys on her email list, and I'm open. What you need, email me when she sends you my information. Whatever you and I talk about is between you and I. It doesn't go Anywhere outside of that, I am your safe space. And make sure, I also want for you to email me and tell me what you learned from tonight. Tell me some action steps that you're going to take. And I would like to keep the dialogue. It's not this is a one-time thing for now, but it's not a goodbye. And so I'll make sure you have all of my information, and be brave, be powerful, be you. It's okay. You're good enough.
Well, so as you all, some of you have already seen, if not all of you, if you haven't, please reach out and find the original email that I sent that already has her books, her websites, but there's another one, and I'm going to personally send you all her links to her academy and her sessions that she's doing. So that the first email was just some of the things that she's done, and she's taken the time to be here with you all and all of us. And so she's already poured into my life, and there was no way I was going to let her talk to all of you all as well. And so, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again. A phenomenal session. I'm so glad. And again, I'm always going to say, for those of you interested in starting your own FMMP chapters in your local area, just reach out and let us know, because that's what the goal is so everyone can experience something like this. And we, the FMMP Executive Board, personally assist you in building your chapters. We'll give you a starter kit so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We ensure that you have all the products, and we even reach out to your commanding general. Hopefully I didn't lose anybody. Uh-oh. Did I lose anyone? Can you hear me? Uh-oh.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. I lost the screen. But ladies and gentlemen, that's what I wanted to offer to you. Go back to the original email. If not, I'm going to follow with another and letting you know what next month is going to be. Just so you'll know, on the horizon, we have the Deputy Undersecretary of the Army, Honorable Mario Diaz, that's going to speak. And we are locking down the final dates for the Secretary of the Army, who will be on one of our sessions as well, who's committed to it. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I'm so sorry if I didn't get to some of the questions this evening. Please reach out, and again, we've got this recording. We're going to be launching our website, our webpage, so that you'll have the information. You can just click on the links, and we're going to have Laticia's information as a part of that website, the Facebook page and website that's going to take you directly to her page as well. So we're committed. She and I are in a partnership. We are all going to be in this partnership to continue to bring this word to so many people. And so with that, have a wonderful evening. Thank you. God bless. I don't know if you can see me. I can't see you, but I feel your love still out there. So thank you all, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.